Welcome to the No Bad Karma podcast. Today I want to talk about karma, passion, and being or feeling underemployed and what they have to do with each other. Today's episode has a presentation with it, a good old-fashioned PowerPoint because it was easy for me, and I really felt it demanded a visual. So I'm going to post that on the YouTube channel. The handle there is nobadkarma.com, spelled out, nobadkarma, DOTCOM. Or you can go to Google and Google YouTube, and then No Bad Karma is one word, and you get a cool AI summary, and the first link should be the YouTube handle. But I'll post that probably before I post the podcast episode, so it can be there if you want to drop off this and go check out the YouTube. But look, the episode will publish there as well, so look for the visual. But yeah, it has a presentation. Like I said, it's a PowerPoint, and I'll put a link in the footer of the description too for the episode, or at least I'll try to remember to put it there. So because I'm going all this extra mile, I guess I need to do some disclaimers. I just want you to know I own this shit, right? It's my life. It's my opinions. You don't have to like them. I usually like them. Please share it. Share it all you want, but don't publicly reuse it without permission. A couple people have asked me to put it on lists they're sending out, and yeah, that's cool. I've responded as such. I've had a couple of guest requests. I haven't responded to those. So if you're listening, still listening to the episodes, it's not that I'm not interested, and it's not that I'm technically resourced to accommodate you, but I just not in a place where I can do that quite yet, but soon I hope, and I'm going to say something about that at the end. But I'm so excited for this episode because if you don't already know, I do almost every episode in one take. I rarely restart, I rarely pause. Sometimes I script them, and I usually tell you when they're fully scripted. And but most, including today's, are not scripted. I'm using talking points, and I mean I have some stuff scripted that I'm talking, but most of this I'm going off the cuff here because I'm really passionate about talking about karma, passion, and underemployment and being underemployed, I should say. And the more I put this together, I was like, wow, this is really what it's all about right now. This is what I'm trying to say because I have scripted out a couple episodes for this year that I haven't even gotten to yet. And I'm like, and the reason I didn't get to them yet is because I was like, people aren't going to understand this. They're not going to understand what I'm talking about because it's really this connection between karma, passion, and being underemployed. But because I talk off the cuff, I might stumble once in a while or put my foot in my mouth. I'm human. I know sometimes I forget to say something I really wanted to say, but I'm giving you a message that's raw and pure. It's like from my heart, right? And in keeping with the theme of today's topic and kind of the underlying theme of every episode this year I'm giving you a passionate message. I'm being passionate, right? It's passion. So this is season 2026, episode 4 of one of my passions or passion projects, the No Bad Karma podcast, Live and Love Intentionally. And as I said, today's episode is about karma, passion, and being or feeling underemployed. So how did I get here? How did I get on this topic? Let me recap the last 3 episodes in one sentence each, or not really going to be one sentence, but very quickly, right? First episode of the year, I talked about how I marked 7 years of sobriety and how I don't have an itch because my life is that much better. Even if it's not perfect, it's that much better, right? Even when it's worse, it's still better. But forget sobriety, right? Because for me, alcohol was a symptom of a bigger problem. It was my crutch, right? So it too was one of my problems, but I had to get to the root of my problem, and it's a process. It should be ongoing. We should always be self-evaluating, getting better as a person. But I was using alcohol to 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 just not address things, and that became the norm, right? To not confront life head on. And so for me, it was alcohol. For you, it might be something else. It might just be not doing it, right? But anyhow, let's move on. Second episode, I talked about how to change your life. And the bottom line is this, right? You're changing your life when you become engaged with it. It takes time, it's a process, and you'll know you're working on real change when you keep with and keep getting deeper into a process. And someday you'll have a plan. It doesn't have to be written out, but you'll have a plan. You'll know when you have it. And your actions will always be following that plan, and you'll start to see results. And then in the last episode, I asked the question, are you underemployed in life? Right? And the bottom line is if you're unsatisfied with any part of your life, that's what I mean by underemployed, unsatisfied. But I use the term underemployed because I'm going to talk a little bit about it today. Work is such a big part of our life. So we can relate to it first of all. And I'm not talking about being a workaholic, but there's a way to connect your passions with work no matter what you do, and I'll explain that. But anyhow, moving on to today's episode, I said there's this underlying theme of passion, but I haven't really talked about it fully or connected it yet. And I think we all use the word passion correctly, but I don't know if we use it fully and generally speaking, understand what it all means, right? And then karma, of course, so many ways to explain that. So, but that gets us into today's episode because the first thing we're going to do is define those three words uh, or terms that I use in the episode title, right? As I always like to say, if you've listened, a wise man, that was also wise enough to screw me, once told me, tell him what you're going to tell him, and then tell him what you told him. So let's move on to the next slide. So let me tell you what I'm going to tell you today. First thing I said is we'll talk about definitions. Karma, passion, and underemployed. And then we'll dumb them down a little bit so we can talk about them, right? We're going to keep the definitions as simple as we can. And then we'll talk about what they have to do with each other. And then four, the question is, well, what do we do about it? What do we do about them? And then number five, if it's so simple, why is it so hard, right? I can sit here and give advice, but if it's so simple, why is it so hard? So if we're going to talk definitions, we need to talk about where we get them from, right? So I went to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's the official dictionary of the Scripps National Spelling Bee, which I thought was cool. And it was started by Noah Webster. Now, I've got to talk about Noah Webster for a minute, and I'll come back to him at the end, and you'll understand why. So this dude was born October 16, 1758, died May 28, 1843. Do the math. He lived quite a life, right? What is that? Almost 85 years old. Yeah, 85 years old. Uh, so in 1843, that's pretty old, right? He actually published his first draft or first attempt at a dictionary in 1806, but it wasn't comprehensive. So what's considered his first edition was published in 1828. Now, here's the thing. He was 70 years old when he published that first edition, right? Life expectancy for someone born at his time was about 40 years old. In fact, if they made 15 or 20 years old, that was average life expectancy. So if they made it to be about 15 or 20 years old, they'd live to be about 50, likely 60. But if you hit 60, you're considered old, right? So this dude lived to 85, first of all. Pretty incredible, right? Uh, in fact, when people were like hitting 60, men, I was doing a little research, men were often excused from manual labor and social responsibilities around that time, right? Women, once they hit menopause, their value changed in society. I mean, so for the guy to do something at 70 is, first of all, pretty incredible. He's like the unknown elder statesman of our time or something, right? It, this guy mastered the etymology of 26 languages, right? So etymology means the true meaning of a word, right? So he went out and found like the origin and true meaning of words in 26 languages. And he advocated for American English as opposed to the British English that came over here. That's why we spell color COLOR and without the U, and same with labor and things like that. This guy was 70 years old. I would love to read a biography on this dude. He did all kinds of incredible things. He advocated, I think it was for copyrights. Just Google him, Wikipedia him, whatever. Really incredible. So, how to become Merriam-Webster? So Webster publishes these 1806 and 1828 editions, right? And then he dies, 1843. And in 1843, George and Charles Merriam, they were brothers, I believe. They were printers, bought the rights to his work from his estate. And they, you know, published it a couple of times and whatnot. But it wasn't until 1864 that they really came out and tried to make it their own. But 1890 is what's considered the first comprehensive revision, the first edition of the Merriam-Webster dictionary, right? And there's a point to this, so bear with me. So in 1934, they do another overhaul and they come out with what's referred to as the second edition of the you know the main thing here. Then in 1961, it's the third overhaul, the third edition. And this is what's really cool before we define words. This is where they switch to actual usage of words instead of how they should be used. So instead of saying, this is the word, this is how you use it, they were saying, this is the word, and this is how it's being used. Now, this word's probably slang, but I thought of my partner and I were talking about this, and I thought of the word banging. I could say, she's banging, right? But banging is banging on something, right? So, but we're, I don't know if banging's in the dictionary like that, but the point is we switch to how words are actually being used, which is really cool and relevant. So let's get into the definitions, and I'll try to move through this as quickly as I can. So if you Google these on Merriam-Webster, the definition for underemployed, it's an adjective, and it says having less than full-time regular or adequate employment. And it gives examples of 43% of young grads, young college grads are underemployed, right? They're in jobs that are inadequate for what they did, and that was a quoted statistic from that site. There were a few of them, but and I'm going to get to this, but I'm saying it's so that's underemployed. Let's just having less than full-time regular or adequate employment, but you're going to know I'm already going to say it's really satisfaction. Uh, let's go on to the next definition. Okay, so passion. Passion is a noun. And passion, when you look it up, has, I think, 4 or 5 actually uh, uh, different ways it can be interpreted. First of all, there's passion as love, and then it breaks it down further. Love can be intense romantic affection or sexual desire. B, a strong feeling of enthusiasm or excitement for or devotion to some activity, object, or concept. C, an object of desire or deep interest. You can love any of these ways. I can love playing tennis. I can love the idea of being rich. I can love this podcast. I can love my partner. You get the idea? But passion can mean more than that. In addition to using passion to mean love, we can use passion as an emotion. I'm passionate about you. Passions can be the emotions as distinguished from reason. Passion as an emotion can be an intense, driving, or overmastering feeling or conviction. A passion as an emotion can be an outbreak of anger. Now, it's actually defined that way. So if you have an outbreak of anger and you say, I'm sorry, I was just being passionate, it's literally the definition of what happened. You were being passionate in the moment, you were having passionate emotions. But I thought about that for a minute because when I get angry, it's usually because I'm really upset about something, but it's something I care about. So I really am being passionate. Now, this is the one that really got me. Passion can also be the state or capacity of being acted on by external agents or forces. So you can be passionate about something and not understand why, because this is how I took it, because you're being acted on by these external agents or forces, right? I don't know where this feeling's coming from. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't need to know. I should have mentioned, if you look this up in the dictionary, there's examples of all these. Now, here are the last two ways passion can be defined. And they use passion with a capital P. And it means, again, it's a noun, the sufferings of Christ between the night of the Last Supper and his death. So when we're in church and they're talking about the passion of Christ, you know, we're talking about that. Or it can also be an oratorio based on gospel narrative uh, of the passion. And oratorio is a lengthy choral work, usually of a religious nature, consisting chiefly, I copied and pasted this, of recitatives, arias, and courses without action or scenery. So if you've ever been to a formal church service and you've uh, sung some of these, I guess, prayers usually, especially like at a formal funeral or something, which I attended once in a Catholic church, a real formal event. Uh, there was a lot of singing. So, yeah. But anyhow, and this was obsolete, which I thought was interesting because passion is suffering, and passion, that's not considered a current use, but of the word, it's an obsolete way the word was used. But I think that's interesting because when we're pursuing things we're passionate about and they don't work out, aren't we suffering? I feel we are. I don't know if it should be obsolete. And then the really fun one, karma, because that's got a lot of meanings too, right? So karma, it's often referred to as a force generated, the first definition, the force generated by a person's actions held in Hinduism and Buddhism, excuse me, to perpetuate transmigration, moving on to the next life, and in its ethical consequences to determine the nature of the person's next existence, right? So anyhow, if you're a good person, you turn out good. If you're a bad person, you turn out bad. That's how it's often used. But there is it's rooted in beliefs in Hinduism and Buddhism, right? So broadly, we refer to karma as a force considered as affecting the events of one's life. Such a force considered as affecting the events of one's life. Well, I thought that was really interesting because if you go back to passion and you talk about those external forces, right? But anyhow, karma, second definition, a characteristic emanation, aura, I think I said that wrong. Emanation, aura, or spirit that infuses or vitalizes someone or something. Wow, that's heavy, right? This karma infuses or vital. We usually say, "Oh, we got our karma," right? And it's like that's not infusing or vitalizing. I don't think. Maybe I need to look up the definition of vitalize, but it feels like more detrimental, right? But but that's the thing. Karma can be good, right? It's a characteristic, emanation, or spirit that infuses or vitalizes someone or something. Let's check out the next one. Okay, now we've talked about all those. Let's dumb it down, right? Underemployed or being underemployed is, like I said, having less than full time, regular, or adequate satisfaction with life in general or a part of it. But instead of saying a part of life, I'm going to say or a passion, right? And a passion, okay. Well, I wrote something that matters and then I crossed it out because I wanted to say, as I've said before, the only things that matter are the things that matter. So if you don't know what your passions are, it's these things, right? And we'll talk about that in, I believe, the next episode. I'm really going to break it down, talk about what my passions are for me, and give you example of all the things that matter. But yeah, we'll touch upon them today because that's what your passions are, right? If you're passionate about your partner, your spouse, the person you're dating, you're passionate about your family, etc. Those are all things that matter. You're passionate about your job, you're passionate about this organization you're involved in, you're passionate about your friends, right? They're the things that matter. Now, and that's where I encourage you to think like, do they matter, right? Where do they matter in the scale of things? But those are your passions. And then karma. All right. Here's the thing. It's the energy you put out in the care of your passions. It can be positive or negative, and it creates ripples in the universe. Just think about that for a minute because you go and get this job you've been wanted to get, right? You go out and you're chasing this job and you really want to get this promotion. Let's say it's a promotion at work, and you get it, and you got it because you earned it, right? You didn't play any office politics there or whatever. You put out positive energy in pursuit of your passion. You got it, right? Now, you scoring that probably created some negative ripple for someone else. You didn't do anything wrong. That's just the way the universe works, right? Somebody else did not get that job, and they may have really needed it just as much as you did, and they may have been just as qualified as you were. They didn't get it, but that's cool, right? Because you did it the right way. And and that person hopefully did too, and they're going to take that negative and they're going to turn it into a positive, as they say, turn that frown upside down. But the point is, you went out and pursued that positively. Now you could have went out and pursued that job promotion, uh, uh, playing office politics and doing other things, and you're putting out negative energy there. Maybe you go out and decide to sleep with the boss to get it, right? That's definitely negative energy, right? You're putting out ripples all over the friggin' universe, right? But anyhow, karma, the energy you put out, not just in the pursuit, but in the care of your passions. And it can be positive or negative, and it creates ripples in the universe. So what do they have in common? And I really just said it all. Because underemployed is having less than full-time, regular, adequate satisfaction with life or a passion, right? And let me say a word about work as a passion, right? So you can be passionate. Anybody who really loves their job, right, would probably say I'm passionate about my work. So I think we should all be passionate about our work, but let me explain what that means. What do you want work to give you? If you just want to go and punch a clock and go in from 9 to 5 and get a good paycheck and have good benefits, and that's what you have, and you have satisfaction with that, you are 100% satisfied with work as your passion. You are not underemployed in terms of being underemployed, for sure. But if doing that, like I've always thought, if if I didn't do what I do, I'd like to paint houses or be an electrician. And I realized that uh, I have a friend whose husband's an electrician. When I heard some of the places they had to crawl, I realized, you know, that was out of it, out of the picture. But if somebody could pay me enough to go paint houses, insides of houses, and do it around a schedule that works for me, I'd be highly satisfied with that. But anyhow, and we're talking about what these have in common. So being underemployed is being less than satisfied with the passion. And the passion are the things that matter. So a real quick word, like if family should be a passion, your kids should be a passion, your partner should be a passion, right? So if something's not satisfying there, you're underemployed with a passion. But then karma is, like I said, what is the energy you're putting out in care of that? And is it positive or negative? And are you creating ripples? And hopefully they're good ripples, right? So I mean, let me make it real simple. If you're dissatisfied in your relationship and you're not really putting the energy you should into it, well, you know, that's your own damn fault. You got to fix that. It's about you putting the energy into it and making it positive, right? That brings us to the next slide. I could think of all ways to visually show it, but really what it comes down to is I like these little circle things, and I tend to find three things that are related, something about the way my brain works. And I really think that karma, underemployment, being underemployed, and passion just all work in concert together. In fact, I tried to come up with the formula. You're going to LOL, but let me explain this. First off, I got to say, I really want a PhD to help me with this because this this is the formula I came up with to simply explain how to better your life with how these things are related. I say your passions minus the positive karma you're putting out is going to equal your underemployment. So let me put it this way. It doesn't matter if you have one passion or 10 passions. They all add up to 100%. It could be just your family. Say you're well, let's say you're a stay-at-home single mom. You know, I don't know how you could just stay at home, but where are your passions? Your number one passion is probably going to be your child, taking care of your child, but you're also going to have a passion for uh, uh, adequate survival. which I think is going to be work or income or something. But whatever your passions are, if you have 10 passions, you're involved in 4 organizations, and uh, you love your job, and you love your partner, and you love your kids, right? Those are all passions. They all add up to 100%. That's the point, right? Your passions are 100%. Doesn't matter if there's 1 or 10. What are they? And then the karma part, right? So let's think, like I said, karma is energy, right? So think about the energy you're putting towards your passions, right? It, it, it because if your passions are 100%, but you only put 50% of your energy towards them, right? 50% of your energy pursuing them positively. Like, you don't do as many things with your kid as you know you should. You don't take your partner out for a date once in a while or surprise her with flowers, and you know you should. And you blame it on money, but you know you could really get that $5.99 bouquet at Aldi, right? There's all kinds of ways to look at this, right? Because we can get into resources too, but let's just keep it real simple and just talk about energy, or you could even maybe even think of it as time if that's easier, right? How much of your time are you spending in care of your passions positively? And that's going to equal your dissatisfaction with life. So you could use this for either in individual passion, really, or you can use it for all your passions and all your time and your overall dissatisfaction. I mean, it's really that simple, right? If you're not putting your energy in life towards the things that matter, you are dissatisfied. The point is, it's in your hands first. You can't go and blame it on the universe because karma starts with you and the energy you put out. Where are you putting your energy in care of your passions? And like I said, somebody give me a PhD because I think we could have a lot of fun together. So this is really simple. What do you do about it? What's important in your life? What do you care about? What are the things that really matter? If the only things that matter are the things that matter, what's important? And it should definitely start with family, right? Should definitely start with family, whatever family you have out there. Uh, we all want to provide work in terms of how it satisfies us, unfortunately, is an important part of life. What are these funny things we care about, right? That we don't understand? That there's external forces acting on us? What's important to us? And then how are we spending our energy? How and you know, you can break it down to there is a resource component here, and I think I talk about it on the next slide. But the point is, how are you spending your time? If you want to keep it simple, like I can go back to think of when I was a cheating husband. I obviously, no matter how much I tried to be 100% when I was with them, I wasn't giving them 100% of my time. And then the third thing is, what daily habits can you change or start? So, what are your passions? How are you spending your energy now? And what daily habits can you change or start in pursuit of them, right? It's really that simple because at the end of the day, what are you going to come back with? It's what's your plan? What do you need to do about it? Now, think about that for a minute. And maybe here's where I should say something about Noah Webster. Publishing his first official comprehensive edition at 70 years old after he published the previous edition 22 years earlier. Did he give up? Learning the etymology of one language wasn't enough. He had to go out and learn 26. This dude had a passion and he pursued it. Now, sometimes we pursue our passions at the expense of something else. So that's why this positive energy you're putting out matters, right? It's really your net positive energy, because if you're if you're 150, I hate when people do more than 100%, but if you're 100% at one thing and you're generating some negative vibes, you definitely can't be 100% at something else. And then again, what daily habits can you change or start in that? Because you're going to identify things that in your life you need to change, and you need to start making them part of your life. I think I talk about that in the next slide, so let's go there. Yeah, here were the examples I was talking about. So, like, and the question is, why is it so hard? And that's what I was saying. You ever go on a diet? You ever try to get in shape, right? It's just friggin' hard. You got to change your behaviors, right? So change and manifestation is a process. If you want to manifest a rockin' body, it starts with changing things like how you eat, how you work out, right? So, and there is a resource component, because, it's like, what do you need? Do you have what you need? If you don't have what you need, how do you get it? Ask for help if you need it, because these problems can be much more serious than a diet or getting into shape. They can be getting sober, right? Do you need to go to rehab? How can we get you there, right? It's a process. It's like Noah Webster, right? It's a process. And you have to go back to that definition of karma, because are you putting out positive energy in the care of these things? Because if you're not, I said that formula is about positive energy, and you're going to be dissatisfied. And when you're dissatisfied, it makes it hard, right? Because you're not getting somewhere. So I hate to say it's your own damn fault, but we all have to do something about it ourselves, right? You have to go back to that definition of karma, like I was talking about, and think about the positive energy you're putting out in the care of your passions. That is your process. That will eventually turn into daily habits. That'll eventually turn into a plan, and it won't be so damn hard. So, this is the part where I just tell you everything I just told you. How much of your energy do you spend on the things that matter, right? I mean, that's really what it's coming down to. So, how much of your energy do you spend on your passions? What are your passions? Now, if you don't know what your passions are, uh, I'll talk about in probably the next episode uh, something I was going through at the beginning of the year that I would say reaffirm my passions. It didn't necessarily help me discover them, but I know I've talked about that in past episodes here and there, but I can summarize that too. So, but it's really, how do you find your passions? Like I said, I'll talk about mine. And then how much of your energy do you spend in the care of those passions and trying to move them forward, right? But at the end of the day, those passions should be in the things that truly matter. The only things that matter are the things that matter. And again, how, is that energy you're putting out in the care of those positive or negative? How are you doing it? And what do you need? Ask for help. Are you under resourced? Right? So, the simple fact that you are here on this planet and proactively listening to a podcast that maybe you never heard before today proves that you are indeed here, no matter how you're feeling right now. And if you're here, it's because you have a passion, whether you realize it or not. Because that's what I talk about. So, if you're going through a dark time, I always like to say this: hold on to whatever you know is the most important thing in your life, because that is always your number one passion. And think about how to take care of that in the best way you can. And like I said, in the next episode, I'll talk a little bit more about that. And like I said, when you go out and pursue those, go out and pursue it in positive with positive energy. Now, this is important. We all know somebody out there that says, I don't really care about anything or anyone except my happiness. Right? I just want to have a good time in life. In fact, I can think of somebody I knew in my life that will probably be perpetually single, or a couple people actually, perpetually single and partying their whole life away. That's fine, under one condition. The one condition is do no harm, because let's talk about why I believe all this. The energy, karma, the energy you put out and carry your passions, positive or negative, it creates these ripples in the universe, right? So if all you care about is yourself, as long as you're not doing anything to harm anyone else, I pretty much don't care. Unfortunately, a lot of people like that, I'm stereotyping, I suppose. I don't think have that. People that care only about themselves often don't care about others, in my personal experience. But at the end of the day, there's a Latin phrase which I'm not going to get out, primum non nocere, I think, which means first, do no harm, right? So think about what I said about karma. It can be positive or negative and creates ripples in the universe. You should try. This is why I say no bad karma, right? You should put out nothing but positive energy. That's what I'm trying to say. If you recognize you're putting out negative energy, and we all do it, I still do it now and again, once in a while. I mean, I don't intend to, but I do. If you're putting out negative energy, you just got to stop, right? But going back to do no harm, right? It's used for all kinds of things. And Google it, read the AI summary, right? But it's I copy and pasted some stuff. It's a fundamental ethical principle that obligates professionals and individuals to avoid causing harm or distress to others. And then it gives examples of healthcare and medicine, because we've all heard of Hippocrates, the Hippocratic Oath. Uh, uh, it's the cornerstone of medical ethics, as the AI summary said. Uh, in law, it has to talk about it has to do with the harm principle. Like, you're, I mean, if you harm somebody, you're liable, right? And then in everyday ethics, and I love this, you are fundamentally required to avoid acting maliciously or recklessly. So go be selfish all you want, just don't be malicious or reckless. We are fundamentally required as human beings to avoid acting maliciously or recklessly. I shouldn't say required, but it's just like everyday ethics. It's just be a good human. It's that simple. That's what it means. So, like I said, first, do no harm as a standard. I just fucking love that because if I look back on my life and even when I think I was being 100% of something, if I think of that when uh, you know, I have to ask myself now, was I doing some kind of harm to someone? And just by cheating, yes, even if my ex-wife didn't know, of course I was doing harm. Of course I was doing harm to my daughter, doing harm to my family. So you can feel like you're being 100 when you're there, but you're still doing harm to someone else because you're generating negative energy somewhere else. It's just a lot of freaking common sense, right? But even now, when I always try to do something good and it doesn't work out, if there's harm caused to someone, whether intentional or unintentional, you know, there's going to be a dissatisfaction in my life. If you go back to that formula, if I'm pursuing a passion, but I'm screwing up somewhere along the way and it doing harm, well, I'm not going to accomplish my goals. Change is a process, but I'm never going to manifest what I want. You're never going to manifest the life you want when you're putting out negative energy, right? So, like I said, I think back to my past. I founded this podcast because I didn't want people to make the mistakes I made. And, like I said, my passions definitely included my family. Yet I spent time carrying on an affair. I mean, just think about that. First, do no harm as a standard for all of your actions. How can you go wrong? So, what comes next, right? When you're out in pursuit of your passions, I mean, I take a lot of these episodes self-help, and it seems to be in personal improvement. It finds to be, uh, I don't know, finding followers there, I guess I'd say, which is good. I mean, that's what I want. But so I'd love to say that I'd love to think that most people listening to this episode are in control of their life and just going out and finding themselves a little bit more and just trying to take it to the next level, right? But the truth is, I feel some of the people that listen are probably struggling with some issue, which is why I said what I did earlier, and some issue I mentioned somewhere along the lines on here. And maybe it's just they're stuck in a crappy job. But if I were to bottom line it all, you know, uh, uh, it, I got to remind you that, the first thing you have to do in making your life better, right, is give yourself grace, right? We've all made mistakes, and you have to give yourself grace on your past, right? I mean, fix your issues, right? But give yourself grace. If you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, just stop doing it, right? I have some other notes here, but I think it's made the point already. So, second thing, change is a process, right? So one more comment on giving yourself grace. Don't ignore the significance of your past mistakes. For God's sake, I was a cheating husband, right? I'm saying if you're going to identify what you did wrong, then also identify what you did right during that process, and not with cheating, for example, but in your relationships, or you did something at work and you lost your job. What did you do right? There's things you did right in your life that you need to remember, even in your worst times. As important as it is to recognize where you screwed up, it's important to recognize where to give yourself credit when it's due, right? You're never going to be able to make peace with your past because you can't change it. It is what it is, right? If you spend your life being a piece of shit, then it is what it is. But uh, you, you know, your formula in life might not ever be 100%, but you're going to move it closer just by changing your behavior now. That's the way the math works, right? So, like I said, give yourself grace. Change is a process, right? Because you have choices every day. You have choices what to do with your time every day. You're how you're putting it out there. Are you doing it with positive energy or not? Right? Center those choices around your passions, the things that matter, that proactively and positively affect them, and do no harm, right? Change is a process. You want to come up with a plan for your life with plays. Get rid of all these plans and backup plans if this doesn't work out. What do you want to accomplish in your life? My partner and I know things we want to accomplish in our life. See, this is where I'm going off even my talking points I had. My partner and I have things we want to accomplish in our life, but it doesn't, but we know, we want to go and live out west for a couple years. It doesn't have to be the next couple years. We don't want it to be 20 years from now, right? We don't know when. We'll know when the time's right. It's a play that we're going to call it sometime. But and remember, with everything you're doing, it's the energy you're putting in. It isn't just time. You can think of it as time if you want, right? But it's all the energy you're putting towards the things that are important. Be present. You can be there and not be present. Be present. If you don't know where to start with changing your life, like I said, I'd like to think everybody out here has got it all figured out. But if you've listened to this point, there's something bothering you, and I said something that resonated with you, right? So where do you want to start? Just one thing, man. Just pick one thing that's important to you and do one thing to positively act upon it. Put out something positive in the world. Do one thing. And if you don't have the resources you need, ask for help. I just saw a great interview Saturday morning. I think it was this past Saturday morning with J.K. Simmons on CBS Sunday mornings or Saturday. I think it was Saturday mornings. Maybe it was Sunday. I don't know. But it was really good because he talked about a time one of his I can't remember who actor roommates uh, left him $100, and he about teared up because well, first of all, he probably didn't ask for help, but uh, because asking for help's hard, and I'm going to do an episode on that. But if you need something, ask for help. So, with that in mind, I'm going to do something I never did. And, uh, you know, basically, it's like this. I have to make. I'm going to mention this on this episode, and I'm going to mention it maybe on a couple more episodes, and then that's it. But I've been doing this podcast for a while, and I foot the expenses. So there's things I want to do to take it to the next level. Those things help me pursue my passions in life. So if there's somebody out there that wants to donate to the ongoing expenses of this podcast, there's a GoFundMe, a No Bad Karma podcast GoFundMe, and there's a link on the closing slide. And I would appreciate any donations for operating expenses. You know, uh, uh, truth is, I've been doing this a long time. I know what I spend. I know what I'd like to spend. I've spent a lot, and just anything would help. But it's not for my friends and family that listen to this podcast. You've all helped me enough in life. This is for people that if I've touched you and you can afford to contribute to the operating expenses, I'd appreciate it. I want strangers to become friends and family. I don't want existing friends and family to do this at all. Not one bit. Please don't. But if you're a stranger and you want to become friends and family, well, you already are, but it'd mean a lot. And like I said, I'm going to mention a couple more episodes because I'm going to tie it into some things going on in the world. Underemployment's a real problem. There's a lot of people out there that don't have the jobs they need, and they're out there on LinkedIn asking for GoFundMe and GoFundMe's, posting GoFundMe's and asking for donations and posting their Venmos and their PayPals and all that stuff. It's real. People struggling, right? Struggle is real. So it's not like that with me. I can pay for my life now. And that's one of the reasons I've never asked help. It's our life's tighter than it needs to be, but this is to take it to a next level. So I'm asking for help. something I've never done, and something my mentor told me I would need to do at some point for some of the other things I have going on. So this is me improving myself too. So forgive me if you didn't like that, and like I said, not required. If you can, great. I'd appreciate it. Let's move on to the next slide. So listen, the point today was this, right? Pursue your passions and pursue them with positive energy. Uh, like I said, you can focus it on time, but it's really not just time. It's all your resources. It's your time, it's your money, it's your personal energy. I remember growing up, there were times where we didn't have a lot of money, but my mom would still pack a lunch and haul us all to a public beach for the day, right? It was gas in her tank because back then beaches were free or you know, peanuts compared to what beach access is today, right? How are you positively affecting, in her case, her passion being her kids, right? But it's energy is physical and mental work too, right, man? On anything you do. And like I said, it's presence. So we could take that formula I had and like I said, give me a PhD and we can come up with some really cool stuff, right? Help people really improve their lives. But the point is just pick one thing for something that matters, right? Uh, remember anything you're doing that you shouldn't be doing? Well, I mean, I always like to remind people of opportunity costs. Pursuing one thing uh, means you're not pursuing something else, right? There's a cost to where you're putting your energy. So that's why it's important to put your time and energy towards your passions. Because if you're not putting them towards your passions, well, you know, that's your opportunity cost, and you're going to remain uh, underemployed in life, unsatisfied, right? Sometimes it's not even the opportunity cost, but what's the toll it takes on your life when you spend time in pursuit of things that aren't really your passions? What toll does that take on your life? And how do you change it? And that's where I come back to, you got to start with your choices, your day to day, your daily choices that you can think about right now, and then it'll become choices that you're not thinking about, right? Like uh, when you get out of bed in the morning and you go downstairs and you get your coffee or whatever your morning drug is, and you're sitting there, you probably have your phone, but are you really pursuing your passions in that moment? Are you sitting there looking at your emails and schedule for the day? Or are you thinking about how to positively affect your life for a moment, right? Or worse yet, are you just looking at scrolling a feed and just wasting your time when you could be doing something productive? Now, that doesn't mean you have to work every second, every day, but it's saying, think about how much time we waste not pursuing our passions and just doing bullshit stuff in life. Spending quality time with your family is not bullshit stuff. It's your choice every day. And if you don't know where to start on how to improve your life and how to generate better karma, how to remain more satisfied in life, just pick one thing for something that matters, one of your passions, something that matters in your life. Just pick one thing and start going after it. Pick one choice for one thing and give it a purpose bigger than yourself. I'll see you soon.